See if it goes. And we are live. Hey, this is Jason or Captain J.
And
Judy. There she goes. We're here on the debut show with here, Conversations with the Katzes. This is on Quake RYC Praise News, where music is therapy. We are here sitting down with Ted Liegel here. You could say, give him a little wave.
Yeah.
We've known Ted here for probably close to 20 years. This is our first show here. We figured no one better that has known us for quite a long time, known us prior to in the faith. And we kind of met on disability-related topics there for about 20 years now. So we're thankful that you're here joining us with this. We had some technical glitches before we got onto this, but it seems to be working currently. So we do appreciate it. You got anything else, Judy?
Mm-mm.
Okay. If you could just introduce yourself, Ted, real quick.
My name's Ted Liegel. I'm president of Legal Legacy Home and Business Services, Legal Legacy Home and Business Services Restaurant Finder page, and I'm Disability Strong RU.
Awesome. So those are some basic businesses that you have, correct?
Yes, those are three businesses that I started. Basically, I started because I started getting sick and couldn't work outside the home. And to supplement my income from Social Security, I needed some extra work to do. I don't do most of the work involved in it. I have other people that handle it, especially when I get sick. But it makes it very difficult sometimes when you do get sick to be able to keep everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So where are you guys based out of? Is all your work based out of the Chicagoland area?
We're based out of the Chicagoland area, out of McHenry County. But on an advertising venture, I can handle anything in the United States. But when it comes to our hands-on work, mostly McHenry County.
Okay, awesome. So when this is all over, if you send us some links to your businesses there, and we'll put those in the YouTube and on our Facebook and stuff, and we'll share those for others. Best way to contact you and such. Judy's going to throw some questions in. No, that's if you know Judy, that's her. Nope. So, like I was saying, we met. We figured out close to 20 years ago. I think we were in Crystal Lake at the time. I remember at that point. Just tell us a little bit about you say you're married. And you have
yes, I'm married. I was born with spina bifida. I have spina bifida, myelomeningocele, and hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain. I was born in 1972, and which puts me 15 years old. This past year has been rather trying because I had a heart attack that nearly killed me, and business kind of went down the tube for a little while, but I'm starting to build it back up at this point. I created my business because I wanted to be able to show other people that just because you have a disability doesn't mean it has to stop you from succeeding in life. And that's where the concept of people helping people, which is what my business is all about, because I help you, you help me, and me help you, because we help each other grow each other's businesses. That's where Legal Legacy Home and Business Services came from. The Restaurant Finder page came because obviously we hit the pandemic, and I was looking to try to help restaurants stay afloat by people knowing that they exist and what they offer for each and every individual, and at the same time to teach them other methods of making money from their restaurant other than the restaurant itself. And then Disability Strong RU came from actually my last situation where I had the heart attack, and it made me think to myself, well, there's obviously a lot of other people that have been disabled at one point or another in their life, and that a disability doesn't just involve something that can be seen. How do these people get around, and how do these people handle their disability, whether temporary, permanent, visually able to be seen or non-visually able to be seen, to get the word out that being a disabled individual is not a bad thing. It can actually be a very good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like Judy has, I mean, we're traveling here with out in North Carolina. She's, as a med tech, and she's been using a chair permanently for 2009. Yeah, so even before we met, it was after we met you, she had a disability of sorts. Became more permanent with the chair in 2009. Now she's traveling as a med tech and, using the chair and all that stuff. It's a whole different perspective of things, and people even look at me and go, she does what from a chair? I'm like, well, that doesn't stop her. I mean, she just continues going. And there's a lot of people have that approach that just because you have a chair, you shouldn't be able to do anything. It's like, I might have issues, but you're still able to do things. You got businesses. And...
Yeah, I said my biggest disability is other people.
Can we get on camera? No.
I said that.
And another thing too is, with God being the force in my life, I think that helps in the respect of it makes it easier for me to understand that these are things that are there for a reason. I was disabled and born this way for a reason. The question is what might it be, and what do I do with that? I mean, do I let it stop me from doing the things I want to do in life, or do I use it as a tool to get from point A to point B? And my disability to me is a tool to get me from point A to point B. What that means by that is I've gotten a lot of gifts out of my disability, like the ability to be able to speak to other people. I don't know if I would have had that ability if it weren't for the fact that I'm disabled. The fact that I accept people at a better level than a lot of people, I'm not sure I would have that either. I mean, so there are things you get from being disabled that other people don't realize. And of course, obviously, there's Social Security. Most people can't survive without an income. There's also, being able to park in the handicapped parking spaces. Most people don't get that either. And so instead of looking at the negative sides of being disabled, you got to look at the positive sides of being disabled. Where are your strengths? And then how can you utilize the people around you to fill in the holes where your strengths aren't?
Well,
that's kind of what my wife and I do.
And what I found is, one thing that having my disability has taught me is the fact that is looking ahead, persevering. If you proverbially fall on your face, not literally, you get back up, you try it again. But this time you make a slight change because, well, that didn't work. That was a failure. Let's try it this way, kind of thing. But it's, it was, for example, I was at work one day and the monitor was sticking out. And this is when I was at my last job. And I flew by and I moved right over and moved right back. And they're like, how did you even see that sitting there? And I said, because I'm always looking like 5 foot ahead, 6 foot ahead. Because for any obstacles, I'm looking to see if the curb cut's accessible before I go block down the sidewalk that has no way to get off. You look ahead, you plan ahead, you can think outside the box.
That's right. That's right.
To think outside the box. Where other people are like, well, I don't know how to get over this obstacle, and I'm like, well, do this. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Well, when you live in a world where don't get me wrong, it's much more accessible than it ever has been. But you still have those obstacles to overcome, like where the curb cut is lower than the street. So it's like, well, you can't get there. Or it's like we had one today. You can get out on the sidewalk, but at the other side, it ends to grass.
The biggest thing I found is trying to find a balance between the things you can do and the things you can't.
Yeah.
And then in turn, finding a balance between the things you can't do and the things somebody else can help you with. and being able to accept that help rather than get aggravated about the fact that you have to have that help.
Yeah. I was aggravating my most recent coworkers because they're like, "Do you need any help?" And I'm like, "No, I got this." And one of them said, "Well, yeah, that's what she always says." And I was like, "But I've got it. I'll ask for help if I need it," kind of thing. But there have been a couple times I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I need help."
Yeah, and that's like, I've heard, a lot of people, a lot of disabled people get upset when people ask them if they need help. Well, you know what? Rather than get upset about the fact that somebody asked you that you need, or if you need help or not, look at it as a positive. They were actually there to think about it, number one. And number two, if you didn't need the help, you just showed somebody something new that you can do that they didn't think you could.
Yeah. Well, and I had it once where I got upset because I just said, "Hey, let me help you." And I'm like, "I got this," because I had a plate and I had the silverware tucked in between my fingers and salt and pepper in the palm of my hands, and they almost dumped the whole plate on my lap because then they went to grab it anyway. And I'm like, when I say I got it, I got it.
Sometimes we surprise ourselves with the things we can do just by trying it.
Oh, there's so much you can do. It's but as our pastor learned when we were in Galesburg here, to do something, he's like, she shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, you tell her no. He's like, okay, go ahead.
Have a good day.
Yeah. He's like, I'm like, you tell her no. I'm just gonna let her try, fail, and then she's like, okay, now I need your help. So I'm like, I don't think you can do that.
Very often is tell me no.
Yeah. Well, that's what we had, a mattress, a twin size mattress at our old house, and the ramp was not ADA compliant at all. It was like 1.8 rise for every foot of run.
Pretty steep.
It's pretty steep. And so he took the mattress, but he worded it this way. He goes, "Don't try to take that inside because you won't be able to do it. You can't do it." And I was like, challenge accepted.
That's one of the things that I've learned. The word should not actually be in the English dictionary because the word fits with everything. You can do anything as long as you put your mind to it and you have the help you need to get to where you need to go.
Yeah. Well, I got halfway up the ramp and my chair started tipping backwards. I go, okay, maybe I can't.
The bad thing was I actually took a picture of her before she got up the ramp as a photo op.
Well, it was sitting on my head.
Yeah, sitting on her head. Be like, why are you taking a picture? No one's gonna believe me that she put a mattress on her head to go up a ramp. So I'm gonna take a picture of her just to prove it.
Well, and
I used to carry a rowboat or a canoe on my head to be able to carry it out to the water with my brother. You would hold it on one side, I'd put it on my head, and I just pushed myself forward to get it out to the water.
Yeah.
So that's an example there too.
You get creative,
Mm-hmm.
You figure it out somehow.
And that's what I mean by figuring stuff out. I mean,
what other businesses are you guys involved in?
Other businesses.
Just our ministry.
We have this Quake RYC Praise News, which we've merged with Orlando Presents, aka Joe. It's a long story. So we've merged with him recently within the last year. So we have that. That's really it in this aspect of, because we do outreach concerts and stuff, outreach ministry, and the radio station.
And how did you get involved in those things?
Let's see. I'm trying to keep it short because you want to. I could go for a 3-hour tour on this. Basically, in 2011, I want to say 2011, I got challenged to listen to Christian music from one of her Mary Kay sisters. That was January of 2011. That was a 90-day challenge, and now it's February of 2023, so it's been 12 years. So I think I've made the challenge. So I just started listening to Christian music in that aspect because, why not? So I started doing that. fast forward 3 years to 2014 when we lost everything. Our house, our apartment, we lost the house in 12. Our apartment, she was in Texas looking for work. There's a story in that. Want to tell that real quick?
Well, I wound up living with a friend of mine in Humble, Texas, spelled Humble, which is where I found Jesus. And I learned who Jesus really was. I grew up thinking he was, don't take him off because he'll punish you. God will punish you. And so I kind of walked away from that. I got church hurt, essentially. And so I wound up just living with a friend of mine. Went to around the corner, what is it, to the Way of Life?
Way of Life Bible Fellowship.
Yeah. Where I met
Pastor
a Jamaican pastor, Pastor Coons. And I've grown up a scientist, so as a science major, if you can't see it, taste it, smell it, see, taste, smell, feel, and there's one more, I never hear it, then I couldn't believe it. And I kind of said that. He goes, you need to have faith. He goes, you need to. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't know how, So we grew from that point on. And now I had gone on disability at that point because I just got tired of fighting with people's ability, people thinking what I can and cannot do from a wheelchair.
Well, yeah, when you were in Texas, you had that too.
Yeah, I went for an interview and I interviewed with the day shift supervisor, and 3 minutes into the interview, after she told me about it, she said, well, I don't think it's going to work with the wheelchair and everything. I didn't even get a chance to say a word about it, which I know it is truly you can't do that. It's an ADA violation. But she's been there 15 years, and it's my word against hers, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to let it go.
Yep, I had that too with a job, and that was when I was working for one of the largest corporations when it comes to stores, and I got the diarrhea while I was on duty, and all over their floor, traipsed it all the way into the bathroom. And the manager came in and he asked me what was wrong. I explained what was wrong, and he said, well, I'll get you some new clothes and you can finish your shift. And I finished my shift, and I said, well, I'm going to probably end up going to the hospital because I don't know what's going on. And he says, oh, don't worry about it. Your job will be here tomorrow when you get back. And, well, it was actually 2 days later that I came back, and halfway through my shift, I got called down to the management's office, and the store manager wasn't there. The assistant manager wasn't there. The security guard was there, and then the junior assistant manager was there, and they said, well, we can't have you pooping all over our floor, so we're going to have to let you go.
Wow. Yeah.
Problem with that is that's an ADA violation. They can't do that. I said, so you're telling me that if a baby comes in and poops all over your floor, you're going to ban that customer from ever coming to your store again?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no. I said, well, then how can you do the same for me?
Yeah. I mean, if you did it daily, I mean, that might be okay. Something's got to be taken care of,
Yeah.
But
So
it was an accident.
I called the ADA and filed a report, and they said that nobody would come forth on my behalf. So since nobody would come forth on my behalf, they were dropping the EEOC report.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've dealt with that too. And, I looked at it that, look, I'm going to continue to try to find the job that I need to find. And eventually what ended up happening is I was doing telemarketing for years. And my dad said to me, you know what? You should just do that for yourself from home. So I said, well, that kind of makes sense. He says, you can get into marketing. He said, you could just be the go-between between the customer and the business. And I said, well, that makes a lot of sense. So I used his inheritance to create the business.
It's neat. Yeah, it's just you use sometimes bad, things that happen that are bad to, make something good with it, and create your own, your own sufficiency, self-sufficient in that aspect.
One of the things is God helps those that help themselves, and if you're help yourself by listening to what God's telling you, you're going to be farther off in life than if you ignore what God's telling you and you just continue what needs to be done.
Yeah. I like in that time frame of 2014, I wasn't saved yet. She hadn't gotten saved while she was down there, and I know now that God was talking to me to where to go. That I had to go to Texas, go where she's at. And when I was there, that's where I saw the faith that pastor had, and I'm like, I need this. That's what I need. And we hear the gospel come from with a Jamaican accent, it has a whole different perspective. It just sounds different.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I was like, this just sounds weird. And we're in Texas, and country little town, Texas, and we're hearing a Jamaican accent. I'm like, I don't know, but I just know that I needed that.
Well, and his last name Coons, that's a test that you use in a blood bank to check for compatibility of blood, which kind of thought was a little ironic.
Yeah, so like I said, I got saved there. That was July of 14. Circumstances occurred that we had to leave Texas, and we only had one spot left that was available that wasn't the street, and that was in Galesburg, Illinois.
And that's where I was kind of told that before I was saved that I needed to stay. And I didn't know anything. I just remember answering a thought in my head that said, I am not staying here. There's no curb cuts. I can't get anywhere. It's not wheelchair accessible. I am not staying here. Well, I always say that Galesburg was my Nineveh because I went everywhere but where he wanted me to stay. So.
Then a couple years later, we started the ministry, started the radio station, and around this time, 2014. So it's coming up on 8 years, or no, not 14, 16. So 8-9 years now, and it blossomed from there. I had no idea what I was doing. Not very tech savvy, as you've already experienced. But he doesn't call the qualified; he qualifies the called. And I've partnered with Orlando, who's amazing at that stuff, and we're slowly growing. And just 6 months ago, there's no way if you would have told me we were going to do a podcast, live. With anybody, regardless, I'm like, no, that's not happening. That's not going to happen. So we wouldn't even go on the radio and talk, let alone on camera.
The same way when I started my business, it wasn't until I saw somebody else do a podcast named Eric Bam Burns, and he's really good at it, that I suddenly decided it was something I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something we can. And that's what we can help you with.
But never really done a bunch of them in a row, and mainly because I keep getting sick and I don't want to be doing them from the hospital.
Understood. Nothing says you couldn't do it from there, but that would be kind of awkward. But it would kind of prove the point of the podcast. Disability strong. I do it wherever I'm at.
That's right.
I'm not 6 feet under, so I'm going to do it from here.
Wherever God takes you, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. North Carolina, Woodstock, Illinois, wherever it may be.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So I know that, like I said, you're married, so we want to thank your wife and kids for allowing us to take you away for a little bit there to do that. But we've known you for 20 years, but I don't know the full story about how, like, your wife, does she have a disability? Do you know how you guys met?
She actually didn't. And then we were rear-ended by a car, and when we were rear-ended by a car, she suddenly started to have difficulties. And she has an issue where her blood pressure goes up and then drops. Time. And so she can relate to what I'm going through. Mm-hmm. And then where her hands will work really great, and then she'll have days where her hands won't work so well. And both developed memory issues because of that same accident.
Oh wow!
And all problems that I've developed from since 2006. I've been hit by 3 cars. I've had 4 flap surgeries to repair open wounds on my legs. I've had 3 heart attacks. 2 of them were considered near heart attacks. 2 of them were considered, or one of them was considered a full blown. My gallbladder went bad, leaked into my kidneys, my liver, my lungs, and my heart. So I was sepsis. I've been sepsis 4 times, and I'm still here to tell about it, which tells me that there must be a God, because if there wasn't, I don't think I'd be here.
Amen. He's not done with you. The adversary's going, let's take Ted out. And God's like, no, not yet. And you're probably a little bit stubborn, too.
Oh, I'm very, very stubborn. My wife tells me that.
Some call it stubborn, some call it determined.
Perseverance.
That's right.
So,
if you're disabled, it's determined, right?
Yeah.
Right, Judy? If you're disabled, it's determined.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it work. Yeah. That's it. You tell her no.
That's
but yeah, it's
like I say now, I use the American Express commercial. Membership does have its privileges, and instead of looking at the negative things behind the word disabled, look at the positive things behind the word disabled. It actually gives you a clearer view of life, because you're not ignoring the things that most people that aren't disabled, even though they really are, don't see.
Yeah.
You see, I've always liked the term, and we don't need to recoin disability term, is differently abled, because the fact is, I'm differently able than I was when I was walking.
And I totally agree.
To walk. I have different abilities now than I ever had. And and I do more now than I ever did, because it doesn't hurt. It's not a struggle.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I don't consider what I have a disability. A youth group pastor asked me once, because he was with a youth group, and he wasn't being mean. He was asking because these kids were coming with a lot of struggles.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me, so how can you say God is good when you're in a wheelchair? And I said, because there was a point in time, Jason and I were in a big old fight, and he's like, you need to get up and walk. And I said, I don't care if I ever walk again. I do more now for my chair than I ever did, because it doesn't hurt.
Right.
And I haven't walked since.
Yeah. Well, I get back up on my crutches every once in a while, because I don't want to lose the ability that God gave me. But at the same time, I limit it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as it does, I stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm kind of listening to God. I know that if I stop completely, it's going to make things harder on my central nervous system and my circulatory system to be able to function, because I'm getting less exercise. But at the same time, I know that if I push it too much, I can damage even more. So it's all about balance in my book. God gives logic for that reason. You got to have balance in things that you do. And even from a wheelchair perspective, you still find ways to exercise and keep the body moving. You know.
Well, I went to years and years ago, before we lost everything. I went to hired a personal trainer, and he had the medicine ball, and he says, now hold your arms out and lift up and down, in, back out, up, down. And I tell you what, my abs have never burned so bad in my entire life. Even when I used to get on the floor and do ab crunches, I'm like, oh my goodness.
I actually do 3 hours of exercise pretty much every day, except for Wednesdays and Sundays. What I generally do is I'll do 2 hours of pushing and 1 hour of weight work one day, and then the next day I'll do 1 hour of pushing and 2 hours of weight work, and then the third day off. And when I say weight work, I don't work out with anything more than 15 pounds.
Okay.
And it's just to keep strength. It's not to build on it.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't lose muscle tone and everything because, like,
Right.
when you're using the crutches, your arms are your strength to be able to hold you.
And then every third session, I throw in working out with the crutches, doing sit to stand for about 5 to 10 minutes.
Awesome.
And that will keep things balanced. I think the biggest, most important thing about being disabled, no matter what your level of disability is keeping a positive attitude and realizing that the people around you are there to help you. They're not there to hurt you. And as long as you can realize that they're not there to hurt you, they're there to help you, and you're going to help them in some ways too. You can't look at it that it's one-sided, because there's going to be some teach them that they didn't know before, and there's going to be areas of their life that you can help them that they need the help. So you can't look at it as a negative thing. It's got to continue to be a positive thing one way or the other.
Yeah.
Well, like Jason, I trust, but how do you trust people? That's my biggest thing, is trusting people. Relying on people and trusting they'll be there when you really need them to be there.
Well, that you learn that. That's a learned skill, and at the same time, it's hurting me once, bad on me. Hurt me twice, bad on you. Hurt me 3 times, well then you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
because
go ahead.
The 3 out rule works really well with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've basically been struggling with people, I call them bad actors, at work that have been, like, they kept unplugging my charger from my chair when I was charging up my backup.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day they turned it off, and they've really degraded the batteries in my chair because, and it's frustrating because when my one charger stopped working, I don't know if anyone messed with it or not. But
do you have a spot within your house that you can charge it where you don't have to worry about that?
I do. I removed it from work. It's just the problem is my one chair will barely last 12 hours with brand new batteries in it, and I have a 12-hour shift. And
What about the possibility of charging both batteries and bringing one to work with you and seeing if someone can help you switch it out? Like a supervisor. Then that way you have a battery in case something like stupid like that happens. You have to charge the current battery, you just have to switch it out.
Yeah, there's no supervisors on that shift. That's part of the issue.
Yeah, and changing the batteries on the power chair is not a...
The chairs I have, they have a lifting mechanism that lift them up to 5'9".
Oh, they're more difficult, huh?
Yeah.
So they're a little more difficult to change.
I've got a new electric wheelchair realm. I'm actually starting to use one for longer distances.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be honest, my arms are not liking anything that blocks. They tend to hurt really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I developed degenerative disc disease in my neck, my middle back, and my lower back, along with spinal stenosis in my neck and scoliosis in my upper back and middle back. So it's becoming more difficult to get around without the use of my arms.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to switch slowly.
Yeah, and so the power, the manual chairs and stuff, like, for her were okay, but it just, she didn't go more than 20, 30 minutes before her arms were starting to hurt, because I can't do this continuously.
Well, I have carpal tunnel on my left hand, which goes all the way up to my shoulder.
Have you considered getting that operated on? I got mine done on my left hand.
I don't want to do that.
And I'll tell you one thing that did wonders. Every once in a while now I still have problems, but it doesn't happen anywhere near what it did when I had the carpal tunnel.
Yeah. I'm at the point where I have to slide transfer now I don't have the ability to stand
Yeah.
straight. And so I need both hands to be able to do that. So to get the surgery wouldn't be possible. You have to not use your hand for what, 2 weeks? 1 or 2 weeks? Not bend
I
it?
think we have a really good concept here, guys. And I think where you guys should take this is multiple different avenues with different people. But you can have me as a guest on your show anytime you'd like.
Awesome. And we might look into having like
And even if you had me as a co-host,
Mhm.
and then a third guest,
Mhm.
we can do that too. That would work wonders. Because
Yeah.
to me, the most important thing is faith-wise, how does your disability affect you? And then what's the difference in how it affects you compared to how it affects someone who isn't disabled? How do they look at their, and how can we work together to build a stronger faith between the two of us, between disabled and non-disabled, to work together to build a better world?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because that's what God wants. God wants us to work together as a team and not separate individuals.
Yeah. Yeah. And the world sees someone with a disability as lesser than. And I've learned that people like through you when we met you first time, and with her and several other people, and even what we met when we were in college, they're not lesser, just different.
I don't think they say it as lesser than, but like I know that when I come across like at our church, they have a bunch like kids that are autistic, and I don't understand autism. So I'm curious to learn about it, but I don't understand it, so that could be misunderstood as I consider them less than because I do something that I didn't understand was wrong. Does that make sense?
Don't understand the differences and why they're there. And everybody's differences are a different reason as to why they're there. Even people like with glasses, there's multiple reasons why people wear glasses, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing as people in wheelchairs. There's multiple reasons why someone's in a wheelchair, not just one. So the question is, go out of your way to find out what the reasoning is, to see how you can best help that individual, and see how that individual might be able to best help you, because that's what this is all about, is people helping people. Or do you sit afraid because of the differences? Or do you judge based on the differences? We're not here to judge people. That's not what our purpose. We're not put on this planet to judge. God's job is to judge.
Yeah.
That's what that amounts to.
Yeah.
So, but I do need to get off of here.
I was gonna say we're gonna yeah.
And like I said, let's try to do this in every week thing until you start growing.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, we may have you every week. We may not have you every week, depending on what we're working on. If you want to be a co-host, I mean, we're cool with that. I mean, that's not a problem.
What I mean by that is like a co-host, where you have me on too, and I can ask some questions, you can ask some questions, and we can bounce them off of each other.
Yeah. I'm a fat guy. Everything bounces.
Me too.
Well, once again, just going to do a little the shameless plug here. As you can see, scrolling across the bottom there is it's a conversation with the Katz's, Quake RYC Praise News, where music is therapy. We thank you, Ted, for joining us today on this premiere show. Thank your family for taking time out. I was taking you away from them for a little bit and utilizing the space that you are utilizing for this time frame. And we look forward to working with you, in the future on other episodes. Is there any last words you want to send out to anybody that's listening or watching currently?
Thank you for having me, number one, and God bless you both. And just remember, everybody, we're all human. Doesn't matter where we're from, doesn't matter what line of work we're in, doesn't matter disability or no disability, we're all human. And we need to love each other and treat each other with respect.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So once again, we're going to end this. We're going to try to do this weekly on Monday nights, about 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Might be a few minutes before, a few minutes after. we look forward to what this endeavor takes us. With you as co-hosts and other events as well and shows. Once again, thank you again. I will go ahead and end the broadcast. And y'all have
great evening.
Everyone have a great evening. See y'all next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.